This episode is a book summary on the book Mind Management, Not Time Management: Productivity When Creativity Matters by David Kadavy. This book challenges the idea that time needs to be managed in order to be productive. Instead of struggling to get more out of your time, David Kadavy shows you how to get more out of your mind in order to be more productive and creative. He starts off by explaining what most of us think of when we hear time management, that we need to make the most out of it, that it is limited, that there's only so much time, only 24 hours in a day, and we have to produce as much as we can in that time. This idea really accelerated during the Industrial Revolution as factories popped up everywhere to create more in less time. But that doesn't really work well in other areas. Take our bodies, for instance. If we try to run as fast as we can for as long as we can, there is a limit to what we can do. We would end up running slower in the end, and our bodies would start to break down. The same is true when we borrow sleep time or meal time to get more things done. Eventually, our bodies will break down and will force us to stop and rest, usually by getting sick or injured. Multitasking doesn't produce more. It decreases productivity, efficiency, and effectiveness. In addition, when we feel that time is limited, we stress ourselves out. We put so much pressure on ourselves to get things done in a certain amount of time that when we do that, we often get stuck, frustrated. We become really narrow focused, and our creativity goes out the window. We operate when we're in that time is limited mode from sheer force. We just have to trudge through and get it done. We force ourselves to do it. But really, it lacks our quality of work, it lacks creativity. And oftentimes it's just not very good. And we're totally stressed out. So David Kadavy suggests instead of squeezing more out of our time, we need to get more out of our minds. We need to manage our minds. A creative mind does not run on clock time. It runs on event time. Event time is when an event starts or ends and it's not based on clock time. For instance, lunch is when you're hungry. The meeting is after lunch. The meeting is over when the objective of the meeting is accomplished. This is different than clock time, when lunch is at noon, the meeting starts at 1 and gets over at 2. Mind management is doing certain tasks with your mind or when your mind is better suited for them. So when creative thoughts come around, when do they come around for you? Do they come around in the morning or at night or both? Creative thoughts often come around when the brain is somewhat sleepy and your prefrontal cortex is not in charge. It is knowing when during the day that you have the most energy, when you are the most rested, or when your mind is more primed to think of lots of ideas or to take action on those ideas. In his book, David relates him writing a book to the 4 stages of creativity and the 7 mental states of creativity. So let me go through the 7 mental states of creativity. The first one is prioritize. This is about brainstorming tasks and creating a plan on what needs to be done and what doesn't need to be done and how it'll get done. The second state is explore. This is about being really curious and giving yourself permission to let your mind wander and come up with many ideas. The third mental state is research. This is the time where your brain can search for specific answers to specific questions in order to get the facts right. The fourth mental state is generate. This is the state where we're doing the work it takes to complete the task. Fifth state is polish. This is about editing your work. It's tying everything together from the previous states to make a finished product. The sixth mental state is administrative state. It is the state when you're in, when you're doing tasks that are related to your business, your house, or your daily living that need to be done. It's just the mundane routine kind of tasks. The seventh state is recharge. This is when you rest and relax so that you can recharge your brain and your body in order for it to be more productive again later. So, those are the seven mental states. Now, let's relate those to the four stages of creativity and see where they kind of lie. So, the first stage of creativity is preparation. This is when you are learning everything about the problem or whatever you're working on. And this relates to the mental states of prioritizing, exploring, and gathering all the information. The incubation stage of creativity is when you're not actively working on the problem. So, this is when you're like sleeping and you're going for a walk. Your unconscious mind is processing the information that you've gathered. So, this is really the rest and relaxation part, and probably maybe even doing the mental state of administrative tasks or household stuff. It's the unconscious area. This is the incubation period where it kind of mulls around together and where ideas come from. Which brings me to the third stage of creativity is illumination. This is when woo, the light bulb goes off and there's this aha moment and the solution appears. This can come at really any state of mind that you are in, as where it's that incubation period before that's just everything's working in the background and then boom, all of a sudden a solution comes in play. It can happen at any time. The fourth stage of creativity is verification. This is when you are evaluating your solution to your problem, you're checking the facts, you're finishing it up. This kind of relates to the mental states of research and polishing. So these stages of creativity and mental states are also not sequential. They like don't go in order. They don't happen one right after the other. And really there's no time limit on them. You can't rush them, you can't, push through them. They really intermingle and are interchangeable. This is, where you really need to go with the flow of your mind and using event time, not clock time, because each state and stage has different goals and objectives, which will use different mental energy and you can approach it differently. If you approach your work in the wrong state of mind, you'll just create blocks. You'll get frustrated and there's going to be problems with, your output, your quality of work. But approaching work in the right state of mind depends on clarity of vision, knowing what stage you're in, where you are in the process of figuring out your problem, your work, and what state of mind is needed, and so that you can match those up to the right time of day. I know it sounds really complicated, but really, it's not. I mean, you just have to think back on how you operate the best. There are times when you are more creative. There are times when you can just really nail down the information and really get focused. And there's different times of the day that works for you. So, getting in the right state of mind may need a little help. And this can be done by your surroundings, but also realizing there are seasons or cycles to your creative moments. So, pay attention to this. Pay attention to the room or the environment that you're in. Open spaces, outdoors, natural light is often good for creating an open mind, and it's good for creativity and brainstorming. Smaller or closed spaces tend to create an opportunity to be more focused, which can be really helpful while researching or polishing your work, or even while doing like administrative tasks that might require just a little bit more focus, like maybe paying bills. It also might be helpful to use routines or rituals to help you get in the right state of mind for the task at hand. Creativity comes in cycles, just as the seasons. There are natural rhythms to life, our work, our creative bursts. it's important to remember and recognize them. There are seasons to weather. There's a time to plant and a time to harvest, a time to work and a time to rest. There will be these times in your life as well. Summer might be a really good time to like expand your big ideas because it's just bright and there's lots of sunshine and there's more time. Whereas the winter might be good for exploring, researching, generating, or just polishing projects, something that needs a little bit more confinement because we might be a little bit more wrapped up in the indoors during the winter. But also think about your days and weeks. As I talked about earlier, there are often times of the day when we have more energy and are better suited for different mental states. Use that information to plan your weeks, your days, and your months. For example, like I like to get my exercise done in the morning because I know I feel better the rest of the day. It gives me that boost of, energy, focus, concentration. And when I don't do it right away in the morning, I often really won't get it done. And it really affects my ability and my mental state to do the tasks at hand. I also like to get projects that take a greater capacity or brain power, or maybe are like the big priority things that I want to get done for that day. And I want to do them in the morning, just so that I can, really have the time to explore it, get it done, get creative, and push it out. Work projects, I have a tendency to do that at the beginning of the week. I don't know why, but that just like sets my week. I have these top priorities I want to get done for work. I like to get them done earlier in the week. Whereas the household responsibilities and the yard work, things that are maybe some smaller tasks, I like to push off to the afternoon or later in the week because I might get tired. My energy is a little bit less at the end of the day and kind of at the end of the week for maybe those mental tasks that really consume that kind of energy. So thinking about, your days and your weeks, what works for you to get certain projects done. I also tend to like the administrative tasks of paying bills. I tend to only do that twice a month just because I don't like to take the time to really do it as they come because I feel like it interrupts my schedule, it interrupts my routine, and it distracts me from other things. So batching time, that's kind of the idea of those things. Can you batch? I batch my billing. I batch paying bills. So what is it for you that you could chunk together, put at certain parts of the day or week or month in order to be more productive and efficient? What happens when there's like larger tasks to do? Well, David suggests breaking them down into smaller tasks. What is the next thing that needs to be done? Making it smaller will make it easier to make progress on it and complete it as a bigger project you're likely to put off. Well, maybe that's just me, but think that there is that procrastination thing. If we think that it's a big thing and we think that we don't have time, we tend to put it off. Another suggestion David makes is to create a system around repeatable actions. This can be done for anything that really happens regularly, like paying bills. Like I said, I have a certain kind of system in place. There's a time of the day, I sit down, I gather all the things that I need to be able to do it and just knock it out. So things that you do on a regular basis. Maybe it's exercise. You get up in the morning, you have your workout clothes there, you have your shoes, you know exactly what you're going to do and you do it. Or maybe it's writing. Maybe you want to journal. You have a certain journal, you have a place that you sit, maybe you get your cup of coffee and you go sit down and you start writing. Creating a system or a routine or a plan for when, where, how, and really why it needs to be done will help you get into the right state of mind to be the most productive and creative that you can during that time. David makes some really good points on why it is important to manage your mind instead of your time. Because if you're not in the right state of mind, it really won't matter if the time is right or if you're in the right physical state. You will not get it done. You will not get done what you want to get done, and you won't be as productive or creative doing it. So focus on mind management. Focus on understanding the 7 different mental states and matching the creative stages with these for maximal enjoyment and productivity. Thanks for listening.